All right, hello class. Welcome to lesson 12 of Unit 3. All right, and we are starting right away with Jada's puppy again. Okay, we're still talking about Jada's puppy. All right, and if you remember from yesterday, the puppy at the moment weighs 9 pounds. And we remember that was 20% of its adult weight, right? We worked on that yesterday. So here's a diagram that Jida drew about that. Okay, this is still the same puppy, the same information, but she makes a little what we call a tape diagram like this. And you can see she calls this is 20%. Well, if you look at it here, how many of these parts with the number 9 inside of them do you see? See 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? There's 5 different parts, and one of them is 20%. Right? So if you think about that, what fraction would 20% be in this case here? It's going to be 1 out of 5, right? So we can go ahead and we can say, mention that this 20% also equals 1/5. All right, so that's something that is good to be aware of. All right, so we have that in mind. So let's get into some of the questions here. It says the adult weight of the puppy will be 45 pounds. Okay, we actually figured that out yesterday. But how can we see that in the diagram? Well, let's look at the diagram here. We have a 9, another 9, another 9, another 9, another 9. There's 5 nines, right? So if there are 5 nines, that means that there is 45 total. Okay? All right, so 45 total is what we're talking about here by having the 5 parts with 9 each in them. Okay? What fraction of the adult weight is puppy now? How can you see that in the diagram? Well, that's what I explained earlier, right? You can see in the diagram there's 5 parts, and if one of the parts is 20%, and they're all the same amount, right? They're all 9. That means it is 1 out of 5. Okay, so you can see that there in the diagram. So it helps you to understand how these diagrams work, because sometimes you might find that making your own diagram like Jada did will help you to understand what's happening in a problem. Okay, so let's look at number 2 here. Jada's friend has a dog that weighs 90 pounds, and here is a diagram that Jada drew that represents the weight of her friend's dog and the weight of her puppy. So you can see with the dog, you can see we have all of these. Let me move this out of the way so it's not quite so big. Okay, so if we look at all of these here, we have, how many 9s are there? Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 parts. Okay, and for the puppy, remember the puppy weighs just 9 pounds, right? So that's how much the puppy weighs right now. The dog weighs this much right now, right? So we want to know how many times greater is the dog's weight than the puppy's weight. Well, since each of these blocks represents 9 pounds, the number of times greater that the dog is than the puppy is just the number of blocks more that they have than the puppy. So remember we said there's 10 blocks to just 1 for the puppy. So that means that the dog's weight is 10 times as much as the puppy. All right, so let me stretch this out this way so we can fit it in a little better. Okay, so 10 times as much because you have 10 times as many of these little blocks that are worth 9 pounds each. All right, compare the weight of the puppy and the dog using fractions. Okay, so if the dog's weight is 10 times as much as the puppy, okay, if we're going to compare the puppy to the puppy would actually be 1/10. Okay, so the puppy is 1/10 the weight of the dog. So let me stretch this out here. You can see that right here. It's just 1 of these blocks compared to 10 for the dog, so it's 1/10. Okay. Now it says compare the weight of the puppy and the dog using percentages. Okay, so by now, hopefully you remember that percentages are rates per 100. Percentage, we're talking about something out of 100, right? So if it's 1/10 let's figure out how much is 1/10 if we're dealing with it being out of 100. So we can think about it like this. We can say 1/10, okay, of 100. Well, how many tens are there in 100? There are 10 tens in 100. So it's 1/10 of 100 is 10. So we're talking about 10%. The puppy weighs 10%, right? That's the same thing as 1/10, all right? Which is the same thing as like a dime in money, right? So 1/10 is the fraction and 10% is the percentage.